Well, I'd like to thank everybody again for taking some time out of your schedule for another fantastic Zoom adventure. This time we're bringing in a couple of fantastic educators that I've gotten the opportunity to share some ideas with and learn from. And I'm really thrilled that we've been able to bring both Brandon and Jesse into the fold here to kind of share some of their best practices, some ideas, and some ways that you can utilize two additional software titles with the MusicFirst classroom. Tonight we're going to be talking about Auralia first and Musician first. So we're talking ear training, we're talking theory components. So without any further ado, I'm just going to kind of run through a couple of quick things here on this slide deck. First, an overall agenda just to kind of refresh everybody. Hey, we're going to talk about how to introduce the software, types of different assignments and things that you can utilize this software to accomplish. As well as giving you some real practical hands-on tutorials in terms of how to do some of this stuff, including the building a test, which, it's one of those things that when you get into the software program, you want to make sure that you have some understanding of how to best utilize that, as well as tips. These are going to be, guys that have utilized this software with multiple classes for at least this academic year, if not 2 or 3 now, I believe. Brandon's been utilizing this as well. So they're going to have some great ideas and kind of the I've been there moment for you to kind of do that. And then at the end, we'll leave some time for some Q&A as well. So in terms of housekeeping, I am recording this. So in case you're sitting at home and you've got a nice cold beverage in one hand and you're not sure how you're going to be typing to take notes, no worries. You can always email me and I'll get you a recording link. I am asking everybody on the participant side, just keep your microphones muted and your camera off. You can use the chat box to type in comments or questions. We'll also get to those during the Q&A time. Okay, in terms of a couple just quick refreshers or nice reminders for everybody, the first is that inside of the MusicFirst classroom, we have built-in tools to help you at any time. So if you are doing your lesson plan at 3 a.m., yes, you can get help. It's just a little bit of self-help. When you're logged into the system, there's the question mark icon in the top right-hand side. That's where you get to the user guide and the tutorial videos. Those tutorial videos are awesome. They're like 2 to 3 minutes and they're on a very specific topic. So they're great. The user guide has some screenshots and instructions there too. If you get stuck and you can't figure something out, we've got a fantastic support team. Juliana, Tori, and James are on our support side. You just email them, support@musicfirst.com. So how do I questions, if you need to phone a friend, as I call it, they're your crew, they're your resource. Typically, I encourage people to include as much detail as you can about what you're trying to accomplish or where you're getting hung up. If you got a screenshot image, if it's a specific assignment, the link to that specific assignment so that they can kind of triage that and narrow down or reduce the amount of time of back and forth with you, just providing that information up front. And then the education managers, I am one of the education managers for the company. You can find out who your education manager is if it's not me. There are others that are definitely qualified to help you out as well. So we're the ones that if you need to do budget proposals, adding seats, questions about any of the software, why would I want this? Or I'm thinking about this as the type of class I'm teaching, we'll help you out, okay? Before I turn it over to these guys, I've got 3 basic reminders, or I call them I'm functionally dangerous tips that I like to share with people. Things that I've seen that come up on occasion, especially with people that are just digging into these programs. The first is, some people will contact me and say, hey, it's asking me for a school code. What's our school code? And I never got the school code. It's asking me for that as well as my username and password. And I always say, hey, pump the brakes here real quick. Always the master key to everything that you end up doing in our platform is by starting by logging into your MusicFirst classroom site. So there's no school code needed. When teachers are seeing that, what they're doing is they're trying to launch the desktop version of the software before they've logged in. So just remember, you got to use that master key by logging into the classroom. From then on, you got access to everything. So that's the first one. So if you ever see a school code and you're like, what the heck? Pump the brakes, go back, log into your classroom. The second one is to create a task or a test. The teachers are going to use what's called the software version, which is the downloaded version. That's really the primary time that you need to make sure that you've got that. So if you don't have administrative rights on the machine that you're using, your IT folks might need to help you with that. But you use the download version or the software version to build your tests. Okay. There's a lot of other functionality you can do in that, but that's, Auralia / Musician 101 from the teacher standpoint. And then the third thing is when you build that test, one thing, and I'm sure that Brandon and Jesse are going to talk about it. When you build a test, you're not picking specific questions. You're picking a topic and a skill level. And there's a bank of questions that are in that realm and that category. And so if you're doing this when you're in person, or if you're doing it remote, just know that when your students do that, they could open up the exact same assessment or the assignment, and question number one is not going to be the same on my screen that it would be on that student sitting next to me's screen. Okay. So those are my three real basic, functionally dangerous tips or reminders that I just like to throw out there for you guys that are already utilizing this software. Okay. So again, thanks for your time tonight. I don't want to take up any more time of my tips, because I want to get you guys over into the capable and qualified hands of Brandon and Jesse. If you do have questions though at any time, you can use that chat box or hit me up, email or phone numbers posted right there. So I am actually going to stop sharing and turn it over to these highly, highly regarded educators in the state of Illinois. Thanks again for joining us, you guys.
All right.
Thank you for the introduction, Mike.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And this is just a quick check. Can you see my screen? Excellent. All right. All right. You can still see the screen now, yes? Just double check. All right, cool. So welcome again. My name is Brandon Estes, and I serve as one of the band directors at Naperville Central High School in Naperville District 203 in Illinois. Jesse?
My name is Jesse Gross. I'm the orchestra director at the same high school as Mr. Estes. This is my second year there. And just privileged and honored to be part of such a great team of educators there. And happy to be here today to lend any advice that I may be able to glean.
Absolutely. So these are some of the topics that we plan to cover tonight. Want to be straightforward in that we're going to try to move as quickly as we can, because I always like to make sure that we're getting into the meat and potatoes of things and not get caught back in the minutia. But the reality is that, again, we are music educators just like you all. We're in the trenches just like you are. So a lot of the tips and tricks have maybe been realized on accident, or emails to Juliana or emails to Mike, asking each other, say, hey, how did you do that? We work together as a PLC, a professional learning community, and so we're constantly collaborating with each other. But the point is that this information is not the end all. So if there's something that we explain that you've got a better way, I look forward to hearing from you all about those things as well. But with that, again, there's our about us, who we are. But what I wanted to start with is, how did we find our way to Musician in Auralia? And I think this is important because I think many educators that are at this point using Musician in Auralia probably follow the same path. Back in 2017, we were tasked by our district to form a PLC for our high school fine arts music team. And we needed to find common assessments. And to be honest with you, at that point, that was the first time that we were trying to find common assessments between our disciplines, band, choir, and orchestra. And so we began with rhythm assessments, and we started with what we knew, which was we had rhythm books that we were able to take various levels of rhythm, put them into Finale, format them, and then print and hand those out to our students. And while that was great, it worked. It was a lot of paper, a lot of manual grading, and the assessment and data collection portion was just taking a really, really long time. And so that was right around the time that we became familiar or were introduced with MusicFirst Classroom, Musician Auralia, Sight Reading Factory, and so on and so forth. So we got a chance to test drive it. And what we found was, because another thing was with our data collection, we were taking that manual data that we collected and putting that into a system called Mastery Manager, which is fantastic. I love it. It gives you all the information about a student that you might need, but it is quite, it takes a long time to get through all of those steps. So having something like a Musician in Auralia where you're working on basic music theory and ear training exercises, the data collection is already there through reporting. We are going to talk a little bit about that. So that's a little bit of how we got to using it. So how do we introduce this to our students? Well, first off, as I've already mentioned, it's good to understand that Musician and Auralia are similar, but they hit those two different functions within the music theory world. Number one, if you see in blue, that's Musician. It is focused on music theory, the basic music theory concepts, pitch, rhythm, terms and symbols, harmony, some compositional things, and even talking about different instruments and just awareness on those general topics. And then you go to Auralia, and that's more on oral skills, your ear training. So you're taking those concepts from within musician, and you're able to apply that actual hearing, audible playback of scales, of chord recognition, identification, and as well as even with musical elements and terms is something that we're doing right now where the kids are actually listening to actual musical excerpts, orchestral excerpts, pop music excerpts that are included in there, and having to identify basic musical concepts like, is that soft or loud? Now, is that piano or forte? Is that fast or slow? Is that, so on and so forth. So again, really, really great parallel of programs there.
If I might just add, it might be worth noting. I think I'm sort of new to this. This is my second year using this software, and I've become very familiar with it. But I think when I first was introduced to the software, all the titles of everything can be a little overwhelming, because you've got it's MusicFirst, and then it's Musician, and then it's Auralia, and then Sound the Shed, and then all this stuff that's under here, and it's Musician and Auralia, I would say, if it would be fair of me to say it, those are kind of the main two platforms that we use most of the time within the MusicFirst suite. So
absolutely,
just so that everybody's kind of aware of that.
So with what Jesse just said is that you've got the software. Where do you start? Okay, so number one, MusicFirst has done a fantastic job of just compiling different lessons and practice tools that are available for all instructors to use, that are pre-made, that you don't need to start from a blank canvas. You've got things that you can open up, you can make a copy of it, and then pass it out to your students and get started right there. So we've outlined that here. If you click on content and then click on MusicFirst library, that's going to open up the MusicFirst library. As you can see down here, you've got band, chorus, orchestra, choir, general music, and you can click inside of each one of those and open up some of those pre-made templates. So what we're showing you here is these are a couple of templates that we use to start with our students. They're getting started with Auralia, they're getting started with Musician, and they're basic assessments just to kind of get students comfortable with how to access them. Now, this example here that you'll see actually comes from the basic MusicFirst, getting started with MusicFirst. So again, MusicFirst is the LMS. It's the umbrella software that these individual softwares are housed within. But again, this is another one of our getting started practice tools that we use. And the reason that we use this one in particular is you might not be able to see this fully, but you can see on the right side of the screen. This is basically showing you different responses within MusicFirst. Fill in the blanks, audio recording, true, false, multiple choice, matching. And when we get to talking about building things like lessons and assessments, you can use those kind of in tandem with the music or the Musician and Auralia sort of topics. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse, and Jesse's going to talk to you a little bit about organizing and setting up your curriculum.
So after you've used your basic, getting to know you assessments, which really are fairly simple. They sound a little more complicated than they actually are. They're really simple assessments just to give the kids a chance to just interface with the software. And as we know, our students are pretty tech savvy, and so they just need a little bit of, getting their feet wet sort of in the software. And they're usually It's pretty self-explanatory after that. So when you're adding students to your classes, you've got a couple really nice options: bulk uploads, or individual additions, or you can invite students as well. So there's more than one way to skin the cat. So class invitations is kind of the first way to go about inviting students. This one is a little paper intensive. So what you're doing is you're actually you're printing out the invitations for each individual student with an individual code on the invitation, and then you would hand those out in class. And this is what the invitation looks like. It's got a little code on it. It's got instructions for the students. Paper copy, you can just pass these out in class. Everybody get out your Chromebooks or whatever it is. They would follow the instructions. They would be able to register for your class there. So that's one way to go about it. As Mr. Estes and I were discussing, it can be a little, there can be a couple bumps and bruises and headaches with that. Just, lots of kids have questions about, oh, I didn't enter my code right, or I'm at the wrong website and stuff like that. But it is one way to do it. Another way to do it, and I think this was especially helpful for us during remote learning because we didn't have the students, a lot of the students in the class physically to be able to do the invitation step, is to do a bulk upload. So this is a pretty easy process. All you're going to do is download a CSV file, and you're going to manually upload the information of all your students into the CSV file. This step it takes a little while, but I would say for an average class of like 20 to 30 students, I'd say once you understand the format of the file, it probably took, maybe tops, 20 to 30 minutes for a class to get this accomplished. So you're going to take their information, their email address, and then what's really nice in this is that you can set all of the usernames to be a uniform sort of username. And one of the pro tips that we have discovered is that it's when you invite, when the students have the invitations, they can make their own usernames, and that can be a little confusing when you're looking at data and spreadsheets and gradebooks and stuff like that. If you bulk upload the users, then what we have done is we just use the suffix of the student's individual email address, and we use that as their username. It keeps everything very uniform, and it's really easy to relay that information to the students when they say, "What's my username?" We say it's the front of your email address, and that's pretty easy for them to remember. And then you can also just set a random generic password for all the students, so that when they first log into MusicFirst, all they need is their username and the generic password, and then they're in the software and it's ready to go. So you do have to have their email addresses, but it really doesn't take that long time, and it does save a lot of class time. You don't have to spend a half hour of one of your precious rehearsals getting the kids all uploaded into MusicFirst. You can do it on the side, and then they're all ready to go. And then the last option is just adding individual students, which is really nice. Like this just happened to me a couple weeks ago when we went from our first semester to our second semester, and I had a couple students that came in that one wasn't in the first semester of orchestra, and then I had another student come from another school, and I was able to just go in there, give them a quick little username and a generic password, and I put them in, and then I was able to add them to my classes. The whole process took about 3 minutes, and it was really nice, and boom, they were in my class. So lots of ways to get the kiddos in there, and you have options depending on what your situation is. So.
Absolutely. So once you've got your kids set up, it's time to start making some lessons and getting into the actual software themselves. So Mike sort of broke down some of these things in the intro, but again, it's good to understand some of the lingo when you're setting up and creating these assignments within MusicFirst and using the software Musician and Auralia. So what we're going to actually walk through right now is actually kind of organizing how to, and some quick tips on just creating reusing assessments that have previously been used for another class or a different time period. And then just again, the lingo here with creating, you've got tasks, you've got lessons, assessments, and units. Sounds like a lot of different things, and just kind of a good understanding of what each one of those does, because they do function a little bit differently, but they're all wonderful and very, very easy to use along the way. So we'll start off with basically setting up our headings, and then we'll get into what tasks and units are. But basically with tasks, tasks are basically your number one thing. when you're talking musician in Auralia, inside of MusicFirst, at some point you've created a task. That task then can then be attached within a lesson plan. It can also be attached within a unit. It can also be attached within an assessment. Units are a great way to organize what you're working on. But again, and you know, based on our feedback working with MusicFirst, the actual functionality of the unit within MusicFirst Classroom maybe has changed since it was originally used. So we basically just use it for organizing, but that's not how we actually assign. We don't actually assign a unit to the students themselves. That's more on the teacher end of things. We more so, if we're trying to combine multiple tasks together, we're going to put those into a lesson plan. So within a lesson, you can put multiple tasks that use, maybe this task uses Musician and the second task uses Auralia, but it's organized. Today we're using more terms like the modules. So it's more setting things up in the module format that we're more accustomed to that way. As far as the topic headings, this one, I mean, it's super user friendly and it's super, straightforward, but when you first open up your class and you're looking at your class overview, which is once you're inside of that class, this is more your hub. You're going to need to create your own titles, your own headings. Once you create that, that's when you're going to start bringing in or creating your assignments, your tasks or your lessons or your assignments from there. So again, as you can see on the right side of the screen, click add header. It's going to populate within this little dotted box rectangular area. You create that. Then you'll be able to reorganize, just simply click and drag, and everything is wonderful that way throughout MusicFirst, is that you literally can click and drag and reorganize all sorts of elements throughout the LMS. And then I'm going to allow Jesse to talk a little bit about favorites and reusing.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for a moment.
Go for it.
Okay, so I've got my my MusicFirst hub open up. This has got all my orchestras in it and our PLC team class, which we kind of what we do at Central is we have kind of a separate class that we title as our PLC, and we use that class to kind of build everything out from there. So because we were tasked by our district to do some common assessments, it's a really good place for us to build these common assessments as a department, and then we house all of them there. And what we do is we just go into that class and we favorite, or we click and drag, and we take them into our own classes and assign them to the levels and the due dates and all that sort of stuff. So we kind of make everything here, and then we drag it into our other classes. So I'm in our PLC team, and I'm going to go up here to class overview, and like Brandon was saying, this is kind of your hub, and this is going to have all your lessons in it and your tasks and everything that you're doing for your class. So like Brandon was saying, if you wanted to add a header, you just go up here and you just click add header, give it a title. We could call it unit number 6, whatever you wanted, and then you would save. And there's your header. And then you would just start, you could take a lesson, you can make a lesson, put that in there. You can take a task, you can put that in there. So for right now, I'm just going to delete that guy just to show you how that goes. So favorites. So the last unit that we just did in our PLC was terms and musical elements. So we have 3 levels that we created in the unit: intro, intermediate, and advanced. They're a little different than the levels that they're described in Musician. We'll get to that later. But anyway, here are the 3 levels, and each level has 4 different tasks in it. So if I go and I open this up, you're going to see there's the description, and these are the tasks right down here. So there's week 1, our assignment, which was in Musician, week 2 in Auralia. Under each one, or next to each title, there's a little heart icon that you'll see, and to favorite a task or a lesson or whatever you have, you just click on the little heart. As soon as you see it is dark, it will be favorited. So now that that's favorited and I want to use this task, so this is a task that we created separately. It's in the lesson. So if I go into one of my other classes now, so say I'm going to go into, let's see, which one did I'm in intermediate. So I'm going to go to my intermediate orchestra. And I'm going to go to my class overview for that orchestra. So here I am, here's my assignments. And if I look over at the right, you've got a favorite list. And this will have everything that you favorited in it. So say, I'm going to say, I'm going to call this Unit 5B just for categorization. So now I've got my new unit, and it doesn't have a lesson in or anything like that, but it's there. And so what I can do is I can take any of the assignments that I favorited, and all I do is left click on it, and I drag it, and there it is. It's in my lesson. Now, if it's already been assigned, or if it's already been attached to an assessment, then it's good to go. That's all you have to do. And if you open it up, if it hasn't been attached to anything, there's the assignment. You can open it, and all you have to do at this point is to make it live to the students is you have to just schedule it to them. You have to assign it. So you just click on the scheduling over here. You would pick your date. Whenever it's due, you can click to assign it to all your students at that point, or you can not assign it. You can save it. So if it's not assigned, then the students aren't going to see it until you want them to. And if you do want to assign it, you just go back up, you click on it, you click assign to classes, you would schedule it to all, and that's it. One of the scary things that we have found about, well, I shouldn't say scary, but intimidating things. There's a little bit of functionality in MusicFirst where once you click on something, that's it. You don't have to save, so you want to be a little careful from time to time. But anyway, that's the whole process. So you've got favorites, and you can unfavorite things, you can refavorite things, and then you just literally click them and drag them. And I can't tell you how much time that saves us, especially as a department, when we can build everything in one spot and then just favorite it, and then you just drag it to whatever class you're in, and you assign it, and you're done. And the students have the task, and that's it. And it's such a lifesaver and a time saver. There is another way to use assignments, which is called reusing, which is just as simple.
Jesse, before you go to reusing, if I can just add on to what he was just talking about with the favorites, if you're looking at that favorites category, you'll see the first one is week number 1, musician. It's just the task. The second one is the terms of musical elements advanced lesson.
Oh, sure.
So it is possible to favorite the entire lesson, which will include all of the individual tasks with it. So you don't have to individually bring in one task at a time. If you've already got them built into a lesson, i.e. a module, you can bring over that entire thing. And again, all of the attachments as far as what software is attached to it will carry over. You don't have to change anything that way. So again, it is a time saver, and that's why we choose to house it in one place so that we can then all pull it and then bring it directly over to our classes.
Thank you for clarifying that, Brent. So just to show you real fast how you can reuse an assignment as well. So say you just want to copy one assignment from a class to another, and you don't want to do favoriting, you just want to take one thing. So if I went down here and I open up a task, and I suppose you could do this for a lesson as well. So right up here at the top, you've got your edit functions. You can make it a favorite up at the top right there too, or you can just click on reuse. So if you click reuse, basically it's just going to make a copy of this, and then it's going to put it wherever you want. So you click reuse, and it says the fields have been populated with data from another lesson. And so right here you can retitle it. You can select your class that you want to put it in. You can select a unit if you want to do it there. It's got all your descriptions. There's all the tasks. Everything's already rewritten out. It's all pre-populated and filled out. And then all you would have to do is click add lesson. Simple as that.
Yep.
And that's it. And then you don't have to rewrite the wheel. And it doesn't like overwrite your last lesson. It just makes a copy and it puts it wherever you need it. And bada bing, bada boom.
All right.
Lesson. So well, pretty easy functionality.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
I'm going to stop sharing for a sec. I'll let you go back to sharing.
Keep it moving here. All right. So again, we've sort of talked about the differences, but I'll just elaborate a little bit again. Tasks. Um, when you're creating a task, you have to associate a software or an element of music first to that task. And again, we're going to go back into MusicFirst and show you some of these things in real time. But again, just going through some of our pro tips, just wrapping up. Again, Jesse's already touched on a few of these items, but we chose to create a PLC team group and then add each other as teachers within that PLC team so that we can collaborate in real time. Now, it's not like Google Drive where you can click and add stuff at the same time, but we can be looking at the same, sharing the screen and looking at in the same place, build our test. Then once we all feel good about it, that's when we go in and individually, again, make that favorite and move it over to our individual classes. Again, using lessons to group multiple tasks in one assessment. Again, that's a beautiful thing because the kids are going to see it as a lesson. They have the potential to see it as a lesson or a module. And as he was showing, as long as it's not assigned to anyone, it can be there, but it'll be hidden. And it's until you assign it, that's when it's going to show up on their end. So they might see the heading, but they might not actually see the assignment until you're ready for them to see. So if you've got 3 different tasks within one lesson grouping, if you want lesson 1 to be open, but 2 and 3 not to open until the next week and the following week, but you've already built them out, you can still have it there ready to roll. Organizing test menu with the Musician Auralia software. That part, that is in the actual the software side, the actual local side of your computer. So I'll actually show you what we're talking about here, and I've got to do a new share. Okay, can you guys see the software Musician side now? Good. Okay, so what we're talking about here is organizing our tests, and again, there's a tiny bit of a learning curve to getting to know this, and again, Jesse's done a wonderful job of sort of cleaning up the organization of things that we've had over the years. Do you want to touch on what you've done here, Jesse?
I'm nothing if I'm not cleanly, huh?
You are that too.
Basically, we've just, categorized, we've alphabetized basically things for ourselves. So what I did was just went through and just did a little bit of housekeeping and cleaned things up. So we're NCPLC, Naperville Central PLC, to distinguish ourselves from our colleagues on the north side of town, the Naperville North Sides. But we've got just everything titled by the school year and then by which unit that we're working. So we're working in month-long units-ish. So each unit is just titled by number in the school year. And then we have them categorized further under each category by intro, intermediate, and advanced. And then because we're doing department-wide assessments, we also have them further categorized into alto, treble, and bass. So orchestra teachers, as you will know, need 3 clefs as opposed to 2 for most other people, but so we got them categorized that way. This part, the functionality of this part of the software is actually really kind of speaks to my heart as an organizational sort of a person. It's really easy to just make a new category. All you have to do is when you write a test, under the group name, under the description, you can just type a new group. So if you wanted to call this, pitch intro group 1 or test 1, yeah. So you just type that, and then bam, it makes a new category, and then the test is under there. So really easy to kind of just label everything and put everything into nice little neat little groups. And then I also made a bad test group. So one little pro tip: once you attach something in MusicFirst, it's a little hard to kind of get it out of your test bank. Because once you've attached a task, and if you want to go back and delete it, the software doesn't like that. So if you want to just have a place to house all of your your rough drafts, you can just make what I did was I just made a bad test group, and so I put all my tests that I don't want in the bad test group, and there they stay, and there they will die. But just really easy to just kind of make whatever groups you want, just alphabetize everything, and there it is, ready to go. So.
Very good. All right, and we'll go back over. All right, can you see back to the class overview?
I'm still seeing the test page.
All right. It's my first day using Zoom. Ha, 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 ha.
There we go.
Okay. Well, I think since we were already there, can we talk about how we copy and paste from the browser? And what this means is when we've created these tests, we like to put the descriptors in each one of the assessments. And, it's just one of those things when the kids open up the assignment, to give them a description of what's going on. So we added this content. However, you don't want to have to go through and retype everything. But this is where we found a little bit of an issue that we couldn't copy directly from. If you were building the test and you were in the software side where the descriptors are there, it doesn't necessarily copy, just highlight, copy and paste easily. So we did find a little bit of a hack. And again, that was simply instead of the software side, the local side software, but going into the browser side. So again, as Mike noted at the beginning, as the teacher, you'll see this launch software, launch browser. So when you launch the browser and then you make your way over to your tasks and your assessments that you're looking for, you can copy and paste. If I want something from rhythm notation, let's say this is where we're actually finding level 1, and we can copy and paste this information, copy that, and when we're building out the test, that's where we put these definitions in. So that was sort of our little quick hack so that we didn't have to go back and retype everything again. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay.
I will say, as a new teacher to this, I think the most confusing part for me initially was understanding the software browser side and how to, basically the two-step process of making a thing in MusicFirst. So the one step is creating the lesson or the task and everything in the music in the browser side or in your class side, and then the second step being creating the test in the software side, and then attaching to kind of bridging that gap.
Right.
And I would say that just took me the most time to wrap my head around and just be fluent with that, to make it sort of an easy process to write and build things in the software.
Absolutely. And I hope to try to just go through a very quick demonstration of creating a quick task, attaching the software to that task and making it live. The last pro tip that we've got for you on this slide is setting up your gradebook and how we set up the curve. And I'm going to let Jesse talk about setting up the curve.
So we decided on a curve for our PLC stuff. One of the main reasons we decided on a curve, our PLC, although it is directly related to our curriculum, it's kind of an extension of our curriculum. And we know that, we're in a public high school. We have students from a lot of different backgrounds that come to us. And so we didn't want to make this, the end all and be all of their grades. So we wanted to be a little giving to them. So we decided on a curve. They have to get above 50% to get any sort of credit, whatever. We don't take anything below 50%. They get an incomplete, and we have to reassign that to them. But anyway, we decided on a nice curve for the kids. So what we did was there's a way to just make a curve in your gradebook. We just agreed on this as a department, and we wrote it there. And so 0 to 50 is an incomplete, 51 to 80%, 51 to 70% is a B, 70 to 80% is a 92, 86 to, I'm saying the numbers wrong. Anyway, you can see the curve there. I'm tripping over my words, but so there's the curve that we agreed on.
But it's just, I guess the the gist of that is that it is possible to add a curve, and MusicFirst does automatically grade and populate that for you. So if I go back to our screen here, this is exactly that. So what you can see, this is our curve that we've set up. And so when the students take that assessment, whether it's out of 15 points, 25 points, 30 points, or whatnot, it's going to show, you know, that percentage. And this is what we base the actual grade on. So it's giving opportunity for those students that maybe, especially if there's like a functionality issue, maybe they missed a question because as they were performing, the internet skipped or something. I don't know. But that gives them an opportunity for just a little bit of leeway on that. So as you can see, these are our grades and our descriptors, and you'll see that they actually do populate directly within the grade book. And I just put this little screenshot so that you can see if I were to click on where it says incomplete or IC, this is what that grade would look like. And this shows that that is below 50%. So that student would need to, we would work on intervention with that student to find out what were their shortfalls, and then allow them for a retake if they'll actually do it.
Enough said on that. I think that covers it.
So now moving forward to how do we differentiate instruction, and you've sort of seen that a little bit in our breakdown from the software, but we do have multiple versions. So with all of our ensembles, very similar to most music ensembles, you're going to have your intro, intermediate, and advanced level ensembles. So we've set up our assessments to be just that, even tailoring to maybe less questions for the younger students, more questions for the upper level students. And also we did actually take the time, and we literally went through every single module within Musician and every single module within Auralia, and we identified what are the varying levels for each thing that was offered. And again, that goes to intro, beginner, and intermediate are the levels. And that's something that I did want to touch on with everybody, that those descriptors, and we've had this conversation with our friends with MusicFirst, that you know, sometimes students look at that, and let's say that they're in my third ensemble and they're taking a test in the beginner or the introductory level. They're like, wait a minute, I've been playing for 3 or 4 years already. Why am I beginner? Like, don't worry about that. It's just an organizational tool. It just simply means, you know, this is the level 1 or level 2 type questions that you're going to get from this category. So just, you know, hopefully people don't get, you know, bent out of shape. But going over to adapted copies of the tests, again, addressing things like our 504 modifications. So if we've got students that have 504s, going back to our reusing assessments or making favorites of assessments, once you reuse one of those, you can go in, as Jesse showed you already, you can go in and edit those. So if you've got 20 questions and you want to modify that for a student, maybe break it down to 10 or 12 questions instead. That will allow for less questions. And again, when they're coming from Musician and Auralia, it's randomized questions. So you don't actually have to go back into Musician or Auralia and reduce any questions in there. It's when you set up the question bank, you have to tell it that you want X number from, you know, this event, X number from this event. But the point is that you don't have to say, I want to remove question number 20, number 19, number 18, number 17. It's just going to say, if I've got 4 questions coming from this bank, you're only going to have that number rather than 8 questions coming from that bank, if that makes any sense to you.
And once you set that up, it is so quick and easy to change it, and it already, the software will automatically adjust for any changes that you put into the assessment. So,
as long as you haven't used the test and students haven't answered. Okay, once a student has taken the test, you cannot go back and alter that. Okay, so that is another thing that is you need to be mindful of, is once one student has taken that test, you can't just reassign it. You would have to make another copy of that test if necessary, if you needed to make another alteration. Okay. Another thing that's really beneficial for us is the use of student groups. And so what you'll see here, if I'll go into my Wind Symphony class, something that Jesse was talking about earlier, when we go to assign the test, it really helps to have these student groups set up. So this is a point where, again, you have to manually go through your roster, go through your your instrumentation and identify who your percussionists are, who your bass clef readers are, who your treble clef readers are. And the reason I have percussion is sometimes I'll have percussion only assessments that I have all the students in the class in here, but I just want the percussionists to do these, these particular exercises. But in this case, I've got my bass clef readers and I've got my treble clef readers set up so that if I've got an assignment, and I'm moving quickly here, so again, if you've got questions, just let us know. And let's say specifically, let's go over here to our pitch stuff. You can see that we created various versions of the test so that the treble clef readers are only seeing treble clef. The bass clef readers are only seeing bass clef, same thing for alto. So again, if I click on this lesson, you'll see that over here in my scheduling, when I scheduled them out, I assigned it to the treble clef readers or the percussionists. I scheduled this for the bass clef readers. So again, if I'm a bass clef reader, I'm not opening up an exercise that's in treble clef when I don't normally read in treble clef. And we just want to be fair to those students that we're not expecting something outside of their norm. So again, groups are a huge time saver and definitely something to consider. This next little piece, this is just a quick share out. As you can see, we've got units set up and we're doing a different unit, a different music theory unit with the kids over the course of the entire school year. We started writing this last year with the intent of starting directly in August. With everything, pandemic, we sort of had a later start, but the point is you can see is that we've associated a different topic per month. And we basically give about 3 weeks, including 2 weeks of formative and a week of summative, if not 3 weeks of formative and a week of summative for each category. So this is just a brief little overview of what you're seeing and how we've broken it up. So again, we've taken the time to really unpack everything that we found within Musition and Auralia so that we could then suit it to our needs for our students.
And I would say without the functionality of the programming, we would not be able to accomplish that task. We would not be able to set a department-wide assessment scope for an entire year of a theory unit without all of the options that we have to put students into group and to differentiate the instruction and to set up the different tasks at the different levels they are. And although it's a lot of work on the front end, it makes such a mammoth thing actually possible. And we're seeing so many benefits from our students because of it.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna keep moving here. This one speaks to my heart. This one is really important because this could have been an easy way for us to lose the kids, especially at the beginning when they're first learning to use Musition. One of the first assessments that we put in front of them is the rhythm tapping assessment. It's one of my absolute favorite assessments. However, there is a little bit of a learning curve to it that we've learned kind of on accident through some trial and error. Number one, students cannot use Bluetooth headphones. And I'm gonna say this again, students cannot use Bluetooth headphones. If you're familiar with the concept of latency, the time that it takes for that sound to reach your Bluetooth headphones, and then they are striking their space bar or using their mouse to click the pulse of the assessment or the rhythm of the assessment, it's going to count them wrong every time. So they've got to use plugged in headphones. Next, wait until you're ready to perform. When they click start, it's going to immediately start giving a click. It's going to give a strong beat and then the intermittent weak beats for whatever the time signature is. And they're going to freak out and they're going to say, oh, it's already started. So I've got to start pressing my space bar or clicking the mouse. No, wait. They can wait as long as they want to. Establish the pulse, read the rhythm. Once they start tapping, that's when it starts to assess. That's such a huge thing. And we've dealt with a lot of students that made errors because they jumped the gun and they went too fast and then it assessed them incorrectly. The next thing, when you get to the end of a measure or get to the end of the excerpt, stop on the last rhythm. It keeps clicking because it's processing what they just performed. And what they don't realize is that they hear the click, and so then they think that they did something wrong. So they start clicking the rhythm again. Well, it's still assessing those extra clicks. So now they're really gonna quote unquote bomb that assessment. So again, they need to be patient, wait, establish the pulse, play the duration of what they see on the screen, and then stop. They're going to hear a couple of extra clicks after that. It's assessing, then it's going to tell them how they did. Okay. And then this last one is minimize your view options. And this has happened to some students. If their screen was already at like 125% and then they open up Musician, sometimes the little button where it says tap is off the screen, but it's already clicking away. And now they're freaking out because they don't know, where do I click? Where do I play? And so again, you know, they end up kind of messing up. So what I've done is I've created just a quick little demo. It's like 1 minute. And this is going to show 3 different variations. Number 1, it's going to show the right way. Number 2, it's going to show what happens if someone just kind of goes off the deep end and shows, like, if they don't get any of the rhythms, it's just going to ask them, do you want to try that again? And then the third one, I purposely missed a couple of the rhythms just to show you the feedback that it's going to give you if you're just a little bit off or a lot of bit off from the correct rhythm. Okay, now we just wait. Yay. Now, if I pause this for a second, what you can see here is the green arrows, the gray line is showing what's exact. This is what the computer has identified as, this is exactly where that rhythm lies. The green arrow is showing that it's giving you correct, but maybe you can see on this one, I was just a hair ahead of the pulse. This one, I was just a little bit more late, but it still gave me that margin of error. Now we continue.
Music to my head.
So yes, we want to try that again. All right. So again, here I purposely played incorrectly so you can see I played count 2 almost on count 1. And this count 2, I performed even much more early than that. But it gave me it's giving me the feedback of early, or if it was late, it would show me late. Okay, so again, that's just an example there, just to show you that the software really works great. It's one of my favorite elements that's built into the software, but there is a bit of a learning curve with that one in particular. You want to take this one, Mr. Gross?
This is my favorite slide, so I would take this one. I'm a big Beethoven fan, if anybody out there didn't figure that out yet. So some tips on creating tests and assessments. So walk through of creating a test lesson. So I'm gonna go kind of quick. I know we're almost at the end of our time, but this was sort of the most confusing part to me, just as a new teacher, is that, like I was saying before, just connecting the two-part process. So we're just gonna go in here and we're gonna make something. Okay, so to write the test, there's kind of 2 ways to go about it. You can either write your task and then open the task in the software and then create the test from there, or you can just go in and create the test and then go open the software and connect it later. But either way, eventually you'll have to go to the software side and write the test. So let's just say, let's create a task. So we're just gonna write a task. So we're gonna select a class. We're gonna put it in chamber orchestra. I'm not gonna select a unit right now. We're just gonna call this task 1. We're gonna say we're gonna use whatever software we want, MusicFirst software, and we're gonna use Musician. And then here's where you could type a description. Task 1, this is where we were talking about copying from the browser side. So if you want to go into the browser side, say you're doing a task about rhythmic subdivision, and you want to go and you want to copy the whatever levels description that you were using for that task, you can just go into the browser side, copy it, paste it in your description here. You would set up whenever your task is going to be due. We'll say it's due tomorrow. Is it visible to your students yet? Have you assigned it yet? You can click on and off there. You can add your standards here if you want. I'm not going to get into all that. Or you can add it to your gradebook. You can assign your points. You can tell it if you want a percent grade or if you want it on your curve. So we're going to set it for the curve that we've established in the class. You can set your assessment group for your gradebook. Anyway, so that's all done, and then we're going to create the task. So we've made a task, and here it is, but it's not attached to anything. So now what we have to do is we have to make the test on the software side. So this is the confusing part for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it in Musition, and we're going to launch the software. And here's my theme music. I need to reshare because I've opened a different window. So let me just do this. Where did I go? Okay, so here I am in my software side, and if I wanted to attach it to a test that I've already done, I could do that. If I want to add a new test, I'm just going to go up to here to test, and I'm going to click this little add button. It says creating a new test. So we're going to call this test test theory 1. Just something. And then you can type in your description. And then to actually make the test, you're going to click on this little entry button right here. It just takes a moment to kind of populate it. Oh, my test has to have a description. This is a test. Okay, so here's where you're going to actually write your test, or you're going to make your test. So
Real
what you're
quick,
going to
Jesse,
you're going to sign
I'm sorry
everything in here, and you're going to click attach.
Jesse, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
The shared screen is not.
Oh, it's not seeing. Okay, let me do this. Can you
There
see
you
that?
go.
Okay,
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So this is where we actually write the test. Basically, I'm going to click add, and you can add as many categories, as many questions as you want. So up here under syllabus, you've got your 3 different levels: introductory, beginner, and intermediate. So you pick whichever one you want. So we're going to say introductory. And then you have all your different topics: key signatures, meter recognition, piano keyboard. So let's say maybe intervals. And then you're going to have a level that you want to pick. For introductory intervals level 3, there's only one level for introductory level 3. Then you can pick how many questions you want. If you want 5 questions in that category, you can pick how many points you want for each question. We could say we want 1 point for each question. So in our task so far, we've got introductory intervals level 3. We got 5 questions. If we want to add another category, we just hit the plus button. And then it'll just bring up another, you'll see another, down here on the blue line, you'll see another category. You can add 5 more questions. You can make them rhythm tapping if you want. Describe that you do level 2. You can do 10 points per question, and then it'll total all of it up. And then this is already all kind of pre-saved. There's nothing you need to do at this point. So once you've put all your questions in there, you just close this, you close that window, and it'll bring you back to this page. At this point, you have to click this attach button. Now, I'm not going to do this. Once you attach it, that's it. You don't have to click save or anything else. Once you attach it, it'll say this is attached to this test. The task that you just opened up in Musition is now attached to this test, and you just close the window, and that's it. You're ready to go. So, and if you screwed it all up, you can just go over here, and you can start over, and you can hit delete, and you can delete that test. Once you've attached it, it's not going to let you do that. So you just want to make sure at this point that you're all set. And that's it.
Excellent.
Did I leave anything out? Was that a pretty good description of how
Just
to write it?
yeah, and just one little tip, I guess, in there would just simply be in the top right corner of the entries selections. There's a couple things. There's the plus sign. There's the minus sign if you want to take away one of those categories. But there's a duplicate. But then right next to that, there's that little box with the little play button.
Let me do that.
Yeah. And that is if you're not sure what content is within that entry, you can actually try them out right there. And again, I think that's really great. So you don't have to go to another place. So so right now you're in under chords level 1. Can you just click on the tryout? It's that top right, second one in from the right next to the question mark. Yeah, there you go. And so this is where you actually get a chance to test out what the element is and be like, yep, I feel good about this. It's going to look different in the Musician web-based software, slightly different, but this is the content that they'll be seeing. And again, you're getting to try that out. Okay. All right. Jesse, I'm going to keep moving here because we're getting kind of tight.
Yes, please do.
All right. Let me make sure I've got my correct screen back up. Okay. All right. So one of the last things that we've got here is to discuss some reporting, and this is again one of my favorite elements. Just because, as I mentioned earlier, how we got to using Musician and Auralia was we were doing a lot of stuff manual. After we collected the data from the students, we had to go into our software, which again was a great data software, but it was very time consuming with the amount of student information that we were pulling. So with the reports, and I've got to switch my. All right, cool. You guys can see Musician now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is where, we're hanging out in tests. This is where you were creating the tests. Right next to it, you go to reports. And again, the assumption here is that you're somebody that's fairly new to Musician and Auralia. This is really good information to have early on. So over here in the test results, you do have a couple of different options: final scores, status, and entry scores. Just for broad-based general concepts, we're just taking a look at the final scores. And so I'm going to click on that for my test result. I'm going to find the test that I actually want to get information on. So the most recent was, let's say intermediate week 1. Okay. And then my user, I want to choose my Wind Symphony class, and then I can select all, or I can actually narrow it down, customize it to within a specific time period. Or if I wanted to, I've got a list of every single student that's in here, and I can go directly to that student if I want to, or I can go just to this class. The parameters down here, again, you can set a specific threshold. If I only want to see results that were above 50%, or if I only want to show results that were below 50%. Again, if you're trying to differentiate instruction for those students that were below that 50% or above, say 51% and above, this would be a faster way for you to identify that. If you're trying to identify, what questions were students missing the most, you can actually identify that through these reports. So again, oops, I didn't take the test. My bad. Up here, you'll find your arrows, and this will allow you to navigate between classes. What class am I in right now? Oh, because I have it on custom. Takes a little bit long. Nope. Haha. What class am I in here, y'all? Let's try this one. There we go. All right. So it shows you students that maybe completed some or not all. Okay, that's good information to know. It gives you information, the amount of time that it took to complete certain elements. It shows you the number of entries, the number of questions. So this student, out of the 5 questions, only completed 1 entry. Okay, oh, come on, guys. Point is that you can get a lot of detailed feedback and data that's going to allow you to go back into the classroom and kind of talk through our next steps. And again, all of these parameters down here allow you to customize each of that reporting just a little bit better along the way. All right, back to our presentation. So a couple of, just as we wrap things up here then, general pro tips. Number 1, MusicFirst has done a really great job of integrating how-tos directly within the software. Up here, again, Mike pointed this out at the very beginning. Click on the support. You've got user guides. You've got video tutorials. If that stuff doesn't work for you, then they also have the Facebook group. And I just kind of took this right off of Facebook, but it's MusicFirst Teachers. If you're not in the group, join the group. One of the really great things during, pandemic times, right? When everyone's remote teaching and, there's servers that go down, there's blackouts that happen, stuff happens. And that's also a really great group to say, hey, my software just went down. Did that happen for anyone else? And if like half the nation is saying yes, it's really great because you'll see Juliana, she'll pop up there in like 30 seconds to say, thanks for the notice on this. We're on it. We'll get back to you with an update. Like, I've been just uber impressed at how quickly, number 1, they're monitoring that. They're taking the feedback, they're going to their team, and they're figuring out the solutions for that. So again, kudos to the whole MusicFirst team for just, being heads up on that. And then another thing is there was a wonderful, wonderful conference that MusicFirst put together called the Music Ed Tech Conference. You can find it on YouTube. I put a quick little tiny URL to get to it here. So if you go to tinyurl.com / music tech 20, that's just a direct link to get you there instead of like a super long URL. But a ton of presenters with a lot of fantastic information. I had the great fortune of being invited to present on that as well, but I watched all of the other sessions and have learned a lot and have included a lot in my own teaching within our school that were presented from educators from all over the nation. So again, super encourage you to check that out as well. With that, I believe that we are at the end of our portion. So at this point, Michael, we'll turn it over to you. And if anyone has any questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, thanks to both of you guys for taking a little time out on your evening to kind of share some of those insights.